Let me tell you a story, and let me warn you, it doesn't start gentle, it begins with a thunderclap of disrespect, right there in open court. The judge yelled at her like she was nothing, like he'd already decided who she was before she said a word. Nobody in that courtroom knew what they were dealing with. She didn't come in with medals pinned to her chest, no uniform, no badge. Just a tall black woman in a navy blue suit, hair pulled back, eyes steady. She looked like she'd already read every shadow in that room twice. If you saw her that morning, you might think she was just another witness, maybe someone who saw something on the street, maybe someone called to testify about a fight. But that was the thing, nobody there, not the bailiff, not the prosecutor, not the judge with his tired scowl, had any idea who was sitting on that bench. The room was heavy. You could feel it pressing down, making people squirm in their seats, making them glance over their shoulders. Judge Harold Kramer entered with his usual frown, a face that looked like it was always smelling something sour. 22 years on the bench had taught him to hide his curiosity and let impatience do the talking. "You ready, miss?" He didn't bother with ma'am, not for someone like her. The words hung in the air, sour and dismissive. But she didn't flinch, not once. She just nodded, calm as a cloudless sky, and waited. She took her seat third bench to the left, folded her hands, and when the time came, she walked to the stand like she had nothing to prove. She was here to tell the truth, and let me tell you, the truth has a way of making people mighty uncomfortable, especially folks who've spent their whole lives controlling the room. Judge Kramer, though, he didn't know he was about to lose control of everything he thought he owned. As she started her testimony, laying out what happened on that street, the time, the place, the way the officers grabbed the boy, Kramer cut her off. "Miss, I asked what you saw, not a play-by-play. We don't need every detail." He kept pushing, try to break her rhythm, try to trip her up, but she never lost her balance. When he questioned her memory, she didn't answer his tone, just gave facts. "I was 10 feet away. No abstractions." Her words were measured, precise. Not a hint of drama. The prosecutor, young and too polished for his own good, tried a new angle. "How do you know which hand the officer used in all that chaos?" She paused just a second, then let it drop, smooth as glass. "Because I was trained to read micro-movements in a combat zone." She didn't say it loud, didn't boast. It just was. You could almost hear the gears grinding in the room as people processed what that meant. Judge Kramer tried to brush it aside. "This isn't a military hearing. You're here as a civilian. Don't bring in dramatics." She just looked at him, calm, patient, like she'd seen this kind of man before and wasn't impressed. But here's where it got interesting. Because nobody knew the real story, not yet. Nobody knew she'd spent a decade as a Navy SEAL, 6 of those years in places that would never make headlines, leading missions nobody would ever admit happened. And after the uniform, she went deeper into the shadows, where silence is the sharpest weapon. She was CIA Reserve, codenamed Blue Echo. That day, though, she wasn't here to fight. She was here to tell the truth. Then came the twist. See, in the back of the courtroom, a man in a gray jacket quietly confirmed her identity over the phone. "That's her. Codename Blue Echo. Standing orders. Observe. Don't interfere unless she signals." He wasn't law enforcement. He was just there to make sure the game stayed clean, even if nobody else was playing by the rules. Back at the stand, the prosecutor pressed about her claim that the officers used excessive force. "On what basis do you make that claim?" She didn't miss a beat. "Based on standard rules of engagement." The boy was restrained. The second strike was unnecessary and punitive. Calm, not flinching. And when Kramer tried again to shut her down, "Just answer the questions. Keep the rest to yourself," she delivered a line that tilted the whole room. "Then perhaps ask better questions." No one dare move. The power had shifted, not because she shouted, but because she was unbreakable. She wasn't done, though. She reached down, pulled out a GoPro camera from her bag. "This was recorded from my vehicle. Dash-mounted. Time-stamped. Unedited." The prosecutor objected, but she cut through with the chain of custody report already submitted to internal review. She offered the evidence, not with a flourish, but the kind of tiredness you see in people who've had to fight for the truth more times than they can count. They played the recording. The courtroom froze as officers' voices filled the air. Don't worry about him. Just another street rat. Say you reach for your belt if it gets messy. The silence afterward wasn't just quiet, it was thick, stifling, the kind that soaks into the walls. Then came the second, Twist, the young associate lawyer. Ignored until now, opened a restricted database. He found her trace, a mention buried in a sealed operation report. Echo Unit, Counter Ops, Tier 1 Reserve. The moment the audio stopped, nobody could breathe. Kramer tried to regain control. Motion to strike the recording. Unverified source. Doesn't meet standards. But she looked him straight in the eye, steady as ever. That video is already in the hands of Homeland Internal Review. You could see the color drain from his face. He was exposed, and he knew it. She reached into a document sleeve, pulled out a formal statement. Sworn, time-stamped, co-signed by an independent witness. She handed it to the bailiff, the room deadly quiet. The oversight was already active. She wasn't threatening, she was just telling the facts. The buzz started, then phones vibrating, journalists going live. Something bigger than procedure was happening. And then, as if fate wanted to turn the knife, an anonymous file arrived. A recording Kramer's own voice, telling his clerk to bury evidence. Chain of custody is a formality, not a requirement. Reassign the case. Don't play righteous now. It wasn't just about this case. It was about a pattern, years of silence, years of truth buried. She stood, not to gloat, but to finish. 3 years ago, you suppressed footage from a protest. Last year, you sealed evidence from a mall incident. This isn't new, Judge. It's your routine. But today, the routine ends. You don't yell at truth. You protect it. And clearly, you forgot how. No one clapped. No one cheered. The room just shifted. Judge Kramer's hands trembled. He didn't strike his gavel. He didn't declare an end. He just sat, lost in the silence he'd never learned to respect. 12 minutes later, a memo would circulate. Judge Harold Kramer suspended pending investigation. But nobody in that room waited for the paperwork. They'd seen enough. She stepped down from the witness stand with the same steady grace, never looking back, walking past the benches, through the journalists, and out the courthouse doors as if the world outside had any idea what just happened. The associate lawyer, the one who dug up her past, managed to ask, "Who are you, really?" She paused, offered the faintest of smiles, and said, "Someone who is tired of silence." Outside, the afternoon light slanted across the courthouse steps. She didn't stop for the cameras, didn't look back. She just walked away. One more name in a sealed report, one more story whispered about justice done quietly, with facts, not fury. And that leaves me wondering, in a world so full of noise and injustice, what does it take for the truth to finally be heard? So tell me, if you'd been in that courtroom, would you have seen her strength? Or would you have missed it like everyone else? Let's talk about it below. What does justice look like to you? And who really holds the power to change a broken system?